So for Carlos, I hope this is now one of those situations that he's been there or thereabouts, maybe not quite consistent enough. But I think this could just be that little launch of now having the Carlos Sainz being a bit of a threat for Charles Leclerc within the team. But that's only good for us because we want to see those guys fight it out on track.
It is, isn't it? Now, Nubaid, interesting little fact. This is Carlos Sainz's 6th podium this season, as opposed to Charles' 4th podium, or he's only had 4. So what does that say to you?
Well, I think the main thing is, I think we've just got to work out exactly what's going to happen for the championship, isn't it?
Sure, Nubaid, what do you think?
Well, look, I don't want to upset anyone, but my opinion on the race was I felt as though Carlos was quite lucky in the end. I think what we're definitely seeing is Ferrari are struggling to decide who the main driver is. I'm sure we'll talk about the strategy later on, but I think he was a little bit lucky in the sense that, you know, if his car doesn't malfunction, Max goes on to win the race, I think. And then also the back and forth that they had for a couple of laps between Sainz and Charles Leclerc told you Ferrari still weren't sure. I'm happy for him. He's Mr. Cool. I just think, like Johnny said, consistency is the key for Carlos. And if he can be consistent, then maybe he's shown that in this race that he might go on to actually compete with Charles.
Yeah, Johnny, I want to get your thoughts on more generally the weekend for Ferrari, because obviously we did get Carlos winning, but there's going to be a bit of head scratching going on, particularly maybe from Charles Leclerc, who I guess is going to be very disappointed from this weekend. We saw Mattia Binotto with a little finger wag at the end of the race, which we're assured was actually not a telling off. That's more like, you know, he was saying, look, the G you up, you know, it's not a terrible result. But Johnny, will Ferrari look back on that race and regret some of the decisions they made?
I think yes, because I think it was clear for everybody that it was the wrong decision. You know, yes, he had sort of slightly fresher tyres with people that were going to put on much better tyres and much faster tyres. Then there was a talk about, obviously, that they'd get dropped back a little bit further, Carlos, because obviously they'd have to sort of come into the pits together. But that was worth it. You had to have those soft tyres on because Charles had no chance, not a small chance, no chance. So how they didn't read that properly, I don't know. And it goes back to what we saw in Monaco, where they did a very similar thing with bringing in the cars at the same time. And that really did muck it up for Charles there. So there is still a lot of head scratching that needs to be done at Ferrari, but they've got to listen to Charles as well. As a driver, you've got to be the one who's got to be very strong in your opinions in a situation that they were in with that safety car, and you've got to make that call together. And that seems to be at the moment, it seems to be, to me, it's coming more from Ferrari, and it's not really enabling someone like Charles to capitalise on what should have been a race win for him.
Yeah, Nubaid, I was going to say, if you look at the context of the championship, Charles made up 6 points yesterday on Verstappen, despite his poor performance. It's not enough, is it? I mean, if Charles really is going to be the nearest contender to Max Verstappen, currently it's Perez, but from another team, races like that are really crucial, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, we heard in Monaco, he said after the race, we cannot do that. And I think this was another situation where they hung him out to dry. Curran was saying on Sky that they actually had, I think, was it 9 seconds or 11 seconds to actually get him in before Carlos. They had the same situation in Monaco where they asked both to come in and then decided to leave Charles out. Again, it doesn't benefit Charles Leclerc. And it comes a point where you have to start to say, for me, in my opinion, I mean, I'm a Charles Leclerc fanboy, so I'm obviously going to say this, but I think he's the one that can run Max closest. And I think by these previous races, what you've just seen is if Ferrari don't get their strategy right, Charles is going to get absolutely nowhere near him. And I think the thing for me is every time Ferrari get into a situation where they have to be proactive, they always end up being reactive. As I mentioned, there are 2 or 3 laps where they just said to both of them, just race. In my opinion, that was a terrible strategy. They had to pick the one that they thought would have gone to win. Then they had the tyre situation. And in the end, one of their drivers wins and the other one is absolutely livid, clearly.
And on that note, Johnny, does the confidence as a driver and the trust in your team sort of start to lack after so many sort of incidents like this?
Well, it doesn't help the situation at all. Again, when we had that little clip with Binotto with the finger, you could see Charles shaking his head. So you can see that they're both upset one is upset because his driver's upset. He's not actually upset because of the decision has gone against Charles. It's just more of that team sort of issue that seems to come across. Now, was this a team issue, a strategy call, or was this a drivers' championship call? Well, it wasn't the drivers' championship call, was it now? Because they got the race win, what they needed as a team. They got the fourth place as well. So it's good for the constructors. But surely the drivers is the one, I think, at the end of the year, that's what everybody will be talking about. They won't be talking about the constructors, but we know how important that is as well with the funding at the same time. So they've got to make the right calls, I think, to make Charles have a chance of winning the championship, because this is a brilliant chance for them. They cannot keep throwing it away, and that's exactly what they're doing at the moment. Very frustrating.